Welcome back to Global. Now, cricket reports are often criticised for one cliché after another, but this was a googly, no national side should have ever had to endure. India humiliated, totally stumped by England at the Oval. There's really no better way of putting it, I'm afraid. Every cliché in the book coming through now. Cricket fans in London stunned to find themselves going home a couple of hours early yesterday as England thrashed the tourists to secure a 3-1 victory in the Test series. It was India's third heaviest defeat in history, and nobody saw it coming. Why did it all go wrong for India? Let's speak to the Indian writer, cricket writer Chetan Narula, whose question to team captain MS Dhoni prompted the admission that it might be time for him to step down. Also here, a man who had match tickets for today, the Indian MP and former minister Shashi Tharoor. The Oval's loss are gained. So Shashi, you shouldn't really be here, should you? I mean, how do you feel? I mean, it must be tough.
When I think of the excitement with which I sort of left Parliament at the end of our budget session to come for this, what I thought was going to be, when I bought the tickets, a stunning climax to a closely matched series,
well,
and I ended up seeing
this budget session, I imagine, isn't it?
Yes, I think it almost felt better to me. You know, my party, the Congress Party, has suffered a defeat, but nothing as abject and humiliating as what the Indian cricket team has gone through.
Why do you think it happened?
It's difficult to pinpoint one particular reason. I mean, first of all the obvious things that are being trotted out, I think, are contestable. They say too much IPL, but most of our batsmen got out playing defensive strokes. It's not as if they were slogging away in T20 mode and threw their wickets away. So I don't accept that. Some people say too much cricket, but India hasn't been playing too much test match cricket at all. Some people say they simply weren't up to it in foreign conditions. But the same team, more or less, has done reasonably well, not brilliantly, but has acquitted itself credibly in South Africa and New Zealand. So there's no specifically individual reason. They just weren't right on the night and on the day.
Well, on the days.
On the days in plural. And when you look at two stars like Pujara and Kohli, who really were supposed to be worthy successors to Tendulkar and Dravid, and you're seeing them today with a string of telephone number like low scores, one-digit scores. There's no explanation. I mean, this is a slump, not just a loss of form. And every Indian innings in the last 3 test matches has actually been lower than the preceding one. So it's as if they're not learning from their mistakes, they're just getting worse.
Chetan, Geoffrey Boycott said this was an absolute pathetic performance. But England had a bit of luck as well. I mean, Alistair Cook was dropped at 15 and then went on to get, a fantastic score.
Yeah, nobody at that point realised when Ravindra Jadeja dropped that catch that it's going to be the turning point. And it was a patchy innings from Cook. But then, once England got onto that role, in the first 2 test matches, they weren't really up to it. And it had been a run of 10 test matches where they hadn't really done much, not even won a single test match. But once they got that run of form going, they were just so intense that they just did not let India get any sniff of a chance. Any of the 3 matches, they just didn't, absolutely. And India, this Indian team has not played too many 5 test match series. So that's none, actually. So so that's been a huge factor. So once, usually it's a 2-match series, so they had won the Lord's Test match and they would have gone home as 1-0 victors, and that we would all, be saying, oh, India won, India won. But that's not happened. Now, the 5 test matches, they had just one bowler who was, they were totally dependent on Bhuvneshwar Kumar, and the batsmen have been found out totally. So, and the 5 test match series don't really allow, to go back and, work on your technique, somebody like a Virat Kohli or Pujara who's been struggling outside the off stump. So that's been one of the case, and yeah.
Well, let's just stay with the cricket side and then maybe the national pride in a minute. But do you think, cricket-wise, it needs a change of captain? It needs a sort of change of direction? And is it actually that these guys just don't have enough county cricket experience, for example, to understand how it's played over here?
First of all, about the change in captaincy, I think it's high time that we have a new captain in place. And I'm talking just about Test cricket, Test arena, because no Indian cricket captain in history would have survived the 8-0 whitewash in 2011, but somehow Dhoni survived that. Duncan Fletcher survived that. And the excuse given was that, you need a young team and it's a transitional phase and they need the experience. Okay, we agree to that. And then in South Africa, they came close. They really should have won in New Zealand. I mean, they were in a good position in Auckland, and then they let a position slip in Wellington. And this series was actually the last straw, actually, because they have been here in 2011 in similar circumstances. They've been through this entire process. And if MS Dhoni couldn't, get it out from his team, couldn't inspire his team. And yesterday when I asked him, after 8-0 and, after these 3 losses, South Africa, New Zealand and England here, have you done enough as the Indian Test captain? And he was like, maybe yes. And when a man says that, I mean, maybe he's beaten. I'll be very, very surprised if he's still captain against West Indies
yeah,
series.
well, he's been through the mill, hasn't he? I mean, in terms of in terms of national pride there, I mean, how does the country react to this? I mean, will there be fury? I mean,
There has been fury. I mean, I've already got some of the headlines from home, and I don't think our team would want to read them. There is a great deal of outrage. I'm sure effigies are being readied for burning as well. I mean, India reacts badly to these things, and yet we know that the moment these chaps go off and win a few ODIs, this abject humiliation will be forgotten, which I think it shouldn't. We should not forgive so readily. I think Chetan is right. I admire Dhoni in many ways as an outstanding player, a creative, original captain, but not somebody, sadly, who's always very rational or defensible in his decision-making. He sometimes thinks from the gut, and that isn't where your brain is. And the problem with Dhoni has been that he has survived too many failures and has run out of, long since run out of excuses for new things forward.
And it's not just about Dhoni, it's also about Duncan Fletcher, because he's been here for too long, and we don't really have much to show for it. I mean, yes, he's been...
every overseas tour.
Yeah, absolutely, and not just the overseas tour. I mean, even against England at home. And that was an embarrassing failure. I mean, you can't really lose at home to England, or to any other team for that matter, because India has been a strong point in that particular sense. Your point about county cricket might, you know, it's valid, because, you know, you want conditions like these and you want experience like that. But India plays so much cricket throughout the year. I mean, all these guys have lucrative IPL contracts, so you don't really have...
These guys are earning fortunes, aren't they?
Absolutely, absolutely, they are. But the thing
is there a risk that actually they're just focusing on the cash rather than playing, you know, international Test cricket?
I wouldn't go as far as that. It would be a little unfair, because, I mean, obviously they're professional cricketers. But the point is, they're playing from January to December. There's non-stop period of cricket. I mean, either they're playing ODIs or playing, you know, T20s, then the IPL, and, you know, 5 Test matches within 40-odd days. There's absolutely no time to go back to the nets. I mean, they do go to the nets in between the matches and get the technical points in. But to get that, you know, actually working out there in the middle, that takes quite a bit of time. So you need to spend that time away from the game. You know, just clear your mind off and, you know, work on your techniques.
No, I disagree with that. They had a week between each Test match.
No, that's what Dhoni said yesterday. No, that's what Dhoni said yesterday.
Yeah, they had time off. In fact, I would much rather, like in the old tours, they'd played 3-day county matches between Test matches to actually get practice in match conditions. Many of them, Gambhir was sitting outside for the 3 Test matches. He was pitchforked into the side with no match practice at all. I mean, I'm not sure that the present habit of touring with no county matches between games actually is defensible. We should have longer series, not shorter ones, and we should have more matches, not fewer.
They did have 2 practice games, but then the intensity, you know, again, this brings back to the point to Duncan Fletcher. Duncan Fletcher is somebody who doesn't really look at the practice games to be very intense. They want all their 18 players to bat, then they want the opposition to bat, so all their 18 players can field and bowl.
Just a final thought. I mean, you know, you've just had an election there. I mean, normally, would there be some political knock-on here for any sort of government? Like something, you know, people say, you know, if you win the World Cup or something like that, you know, then you're guaranteed re-election. But I suppose it wouldn't apply, given it's only about a month ago, the election.
No, the government has only been in power for just under 3 months, in fact, and I think they will not be getting either the blame or the credit for cricketing performances for some time to come. Cricket has an effect on the overall sort of national feel-good factor. There isn't a feel-good factor right now about the cricket, but there is change in the air because of a new government. So I don't think one will really undermine the other.
All right, we're out of time. Shashi Tharoor and Chetan Narula, thank you both very much indeed for joining us here on Global.